Hi, I'm Chance Lee. I would like to talk about my grant with title Development of Wildlife Corridors for Conservation of Bornean Orangutan Pongo Pygmies in Sabah. Bornean orangutan Pongo pygmies is a critically endangered orangutan species endemic to the island of Borneo. Previously, Pongo pygmies was the subspecies of orangutans found in Borneo and Sumatra, and recently they were separated into the Bornean orangutan Pongo pygmies and the Sumatran orangutan Pongo evoli. Both the orangutan species differ slightly in their morphology and behavior. The Bornean orangutans are important in maintaining the forest health by acting as the world's largest seed dispersers. However, WWF Malaysia had revealed that within 40 years, the number of Pongo pygmies in Sabah have dropped from 230,000 to about 104,700 individuals, which recorded a loss of 50% of their population. According to the most recent IUCN Red List, Pongo pygmies is currently classified as critically endangered from the status of endangered before that. The changes in status in this species mean that the orangutan is now facing an extremely high risk of extinction in the wild. Decline in orangutan population is mainly due to habitat fragmentation caused by land clearing for human activities such as agriculture, rural development, urbanization, and so on. Habitat fragmentation have transformed a large expanded habitat into several smaller areas isolated from one another. The small habitat patches had limited the reproduction, food, and shelter for Bornean orangutans, so developing of wildlife corridors is important. Wildlife corridors allow free movement of orangutans and genetic exchange between habitat patches to increase the genetic variation. There are four research questions in this grant. First, what are the important biological characteristics and criteria that should be considered in developing of wildlife corridors? Second, what are the potential corridors of Bornean orangutan Pongo pygmies in the wildlife corridors development in Sabah? Third, what is the importance of wildlife corridors towards the population of Bornean orangutan Pongo pygmies in Sabah? Last, how effective of wildlife corridors in conserving population of Bornean orangutan Pongo pygmies in Sabah? There are four objectives in this grant. First, to evaluate the importance of wildlife corridors towards population of Borneo orangutan Pongo pygmies in Sabah. Second, to identify the actions needed to develop the wildlife corridors in Sabah. Third, to identify potential corridors that can accommodate movement of Borneo orangutan Pongo pygmies. Lastly, to evaluate the effectiveness of wildlife corridors in conserving the population of Borneo orangutan Pongo pygmies. So let's move to methodology. The first method is to assess permissions for conducting fieldwork in rainforest of Sabah will be arranged with the Sabah Forestry Department. The second step is to survey on population of Bornean orangutan Pongo pygmies in rainforest of Sabah. The habitats of Bornean orangutan Pongo pygmies in Sabah, such as Kinabatangan River, Danum Valley, and Daramakot Forest Reserve in Sabah will be visited and surveyed by counting of nests to record the population of Pongo pygmies. Finding nests of Pongo pygmies in the area is an indicator of their presence. Hence, estimation of orangutan population is the most accurate way of counting them in the wild.
I'm expert. So here in Sabah, in collaboration with WWF, we're trialing a new method. not from the ground, but from the air. Orangutans, like all mammals, produce heat, and with infrared cameras, we're trying to detect that heat when they're in their nests from the air by having an infrared camera.
The next step is site selection by using Geographical Information System (GIS). The potentially suitable habitat patches that can support breeding populations of pongo pygmies will be surveyed and selected by using GIS. GIS is a computer system that creates, analyzes, and displays geographically referenced information through mapping. It is the least cost path method for estimating the size of corridors, connectivity of habitat patches, as well as maximizing the land use for conservation purposes. Habitat patches with low cost values, a large area of surrounding habitat, and small size will be identified as potential sites for expansion, so that the minimum requirements of habitats of pongo pygmies can be met. Next, analysis of connectivity of habitat patches in the study sites. The Connectivity Analysis Toolkit (CAT) will be used to identify a complete linkage network between many small habitat patches. It will also be used in analyzing the suitability of habitats in order to identify the habitat patches that would be prioritized for conservation measures, as well as facilitate connectivity and dispersal of pongo pygmies. By using the toolkit, the contribution of each habitat patches in the ecological flows across the wildlife corridors will be identified in an effective manner. Next, the expected result in this grant is new habitat patches for wildlife corridors development will be identified. Second, the population of pongo pygmies in rainforest of Sabah will be updated. Third, the distribution of pongo pygmies in Sabah will be updated. Last, the connectivity of wildlife corridors for potential habitats will be identified in this grant. Besides, this grant is important to provide vital baseline data for developing an effective sustainable management plan for the long-term ex-situ conservation of pongo pygmies. Next, it will provide insights into the development of wildlife corridors in conserving the populations of pongo pygmies. The data will also help Sabah state government to identify new protected areas to prioritize for protection and conservation. Last, the long-term sustainable management of pongo pygmies will benefit the local community and other organisms. By funding through this grant, Sabah state government will be able to use the baseline data such as important or vulnerable habitat patches and population of pongo pygmies to implement management plans as well as to establish protected areas in conserving the Bornean orangutan. Next, for the budget of this grant, the total budget needed in this grant is 113,000 ringgit. Among the 113,000 ringgit, 48,000 ringgit is allowance for the GRA master students for 2 years. Next, since this project will be conducted in Sabah, so traveling from UTHM Pago to Sabah Forestry Department for meeting and for surveying and sampling are required. All the traveling and transportation fees are 42,000 ringgit. Besides that, the rental fee is also included in this grant to subscribe for Geographical Information System (GIS) and the Connectivity Analysis Toolkit (CAT) for one computer for 2 years. The total of rental fee is 6,000 ringgit. For the professional services, 3,000 ringgit is for proofreading services, 1,000 ringgit for short-term course, which is the Geographical Information System course at UTHM, and 6,000 ringgit for journal page charges. That's all from me. Thank you.